We're a small family of 4, the 2 of us and 2 kids, 4 and 3 years old. My son is the older one, and for the last year, he has had nightmares off and on. Some mornings I'll wake up with him wedged firmly in between my wife and I, which is fine. We've all been there. I have no problem with it. What I do have a problem with is when he walks in 20 minutes after we've turned the lights off and the house is dark. Just stand next to my bed on my side and stare at me. I get the sensation that I'm not alone and wake up with a dark little silhouette right next to my face. Although at times it sends me into a slight panic, or at least leaves me with slight chills. Not very manly or dad-like, I'll admit. I'll break the silence. "Yeah, buddy?" He'll usually ask me if I'm awake and tell me he had bad dreams. I'll let him climb into bed with us at that point, and that's the end of it. Well, last night, same thing happened. I got the uneasy feeling I wasn't alone. My eyelids opened, and there he was again. A dark little silhouette mere inches from my face. "What is it, buddy?" I asked. No response, just silence. Then it clicked that both my kids were staying at my in-laws for the night. I no longer wonder why my son wants to sleep in our bed. I was able to reach up and flip on the light, but of course there was no one there. However, I looked down the hallway and into my son's room, and the silhouette is standing in the doorway and hasn't moved for the last hour. I think it's waiting for my son to come home. You're the manager for a small store. You hired one of your friends and you just found out that he's been stealing from the register, stealing stock, abandoning his post to visit with his girlfriend in the back room, all the while he's the only one on duty. And the argument you had with him in the office just didn't settle it for you. You pound on his door. When he opens up, he goes pale, soils himself, and staggers back, gasping for breath. It doesn't impress you, really. You figure he just thinks you're showing up with the cops, until you step through his door and glance to the side, where you get a good look at yourself in the mirror. Or at least the parts of you that are still recognizable after that shotgun blast that your friend gave you at the end of that last argument. There was a hunter in the woods who, after a long day of hunting, was in the middle of an immense forest. It was getting dark, and having lost his bearings, he decided to head in one direction until he was clear of the increasingly oppressive foliage. After what seemed like hours, he came across a cabin in a small clearing. Realizing how dark it had grown, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. He approached and found the door ajar. Nobody was inside. The hunter flopped down on the single bed, deciding to explain himself to the owner in the morning. As he looked around, he was surprised to see the walls adorned by many portraits, all painted in incredible detail. Without exception, they appeared to be staring down at him, their features twisted into looks of hatred and malice. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable, making a concerted effort to ignore the many hateful faces. He turned to face the wall, and exhausted, he fell into a restless sleep. Face down in an unfamiliar bed, he turned blinking in unexpected sunlight. Looking up, he discovered that the cabin had no portraits, only windows. When I was a child, I lived in a rented 2-floor house. Both my parents worked, so I was often alone when I came home from school. Early one evening, I came home and the house was still dark. I called out, "Mom?" and heard a voice say, "Yeah," from upstairs. I called my mom again and got the same "Yeah" reply. I felt she was calling back at me and I climbed the stairs. When I reached the first floor, I called her once more and the voice "Yeah" came from the furthest room. I felt both uneasy but a strong urge to see my mother, and I started to walk towards the room. Just as I was about to open the door into the room, I heard the front door downstairs open and my mother come in carrying lots of shopping bags. "Sweetie, are you home?" My mother called in a cheery voice. Hearing her voice made me feel instantly better, and I turned back to go downstairs at once. But not before I had a quick glance towards the room. While I watched from atop the stairs, the door to the room slowly opened a crack. For a brief moment, I saw something very strange in there.